أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن أعداءهم وقتلتهم وظالميهم ومخالفيهم أجمعين. السلام عليك يا بقية الله يا صاحب الأمر والزمان. Dear brothers and sisters, viewers of Imam Hussein TV, I'm grateful to have the honor and fortune to be delivering this talk to you in the program, which is a series of talks entitled The Universal Reformer, broadcast to you through Imam Hussein TV. On such blissful and joyous nights as we're approaching the anniversary of the birthday of the Imam of our time, it is truly a pleasure to be sitting here in the studio from Bain al-Haramain. May Allah bless you with the tawfiq to come here and visit the shrines of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his loyal brother Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam on such days and nights. We have been exploring this topic, different branches and aspects of this topic, as I'm joined here in the studio by the great cleric Sayyid Ali Nawab, and we shall continue the discussion tonight around His Holiness the Imam of our time, Sahibul Amr wa Zaman. But first, allow me to express my salam to our guest, honorable guest here, on your behalf and myself. Salamun alaikum Sayyidina, Asadallah ayyamkum.
Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullah. Asadallah ayyamakum. Eid Mubarak, inshallah, to you and to our dear brothers and sisters, the respected viewers of Imam Hussein TV, alayhi salam.
Great. Well, as a brief intro for those viewers who might have missed last night's show, we discussed the fact that we're living in a world fraught with miseries, troubles, plights that have cast a dark shadow all over. We're living in a world of injustice and all ills and wrongs of all types. And we're surrounded, and it seems to be closing in on all of us.
Sure.
This is certainly a fact that cannot be denied. But is there hope? Are we left alone? These are questions that come to mind as we speak of all these miserable times. We drew upon an example last night of the recent and, of course, ongoing pandemic, which raged the world and swept across all continents and brought to knees many great civilizations and so-called advanced and developed countries, those who have big claims of establishing security and boasting advanced medical health care and so on and so forth. And we saw that the financial crisis and the health situation and circumstances almost crippled all of these seemingly robust institutions. And it probably should make everyone come to a stance where we stop and think and pause and say, isn't it time we resorted to some power which is beyond human power? Isn't it time we turned our attention to a supreme divine power and looked for a shelter and refuge that can be truly relied upon no matter what the circumstances, and one that can stand the test of all tribulations and troubles. So we came to the discussion of the true refuge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us, that is, He has appointed a representative, the Imam of our time, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. And we should be so grateful to have the privilege to be his follower. And it fills our hearts with hope that this Savior is protecting us, is watching us, hearing us at all times. So this perspective and faith shall be spread. Now, we arrived at the literature of hadith that speaks of this Imam. And if I recall correctly, you narrated a hadith from Maulana Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, in which the Imam alayhi salam gives glad tidings, actually, of the arrival of the time when the Ahlul Bayt will have their reign in this world, will have their, let's call it kingdom, true kingdom, of course, a divine and just kingdom. But it is all about the, let's call it the run-up to that period that matters. How we treat the Imam of our time, how we interact with the Imam of our time, and how we behave during this period. Do we understand what duties we have? Do we understand really the concept of intizar? Who is a muntazir? And so on and so forth. I'm sorry if it went lengthy, but over to you.
For the introduction, because as you said, there might be some brothers and sisters who missed the live show yesterday, so it was beneficial for them to be able to recap on what we discussed in the last episode. But before I start and delve into the main topic tonight, allow me to, as we are in the close vicinity of the shrines of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his loyal brother, and on behalf of our dear respected brothers and sisters, send a short salam, so we can inshallah start the show with the glad tidings and the salam towards Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his brother Abu Fadl Abbas. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sallallahu alayka ya mawlaya ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya mawlaya ya ibn Rasulillah. Sallallahu alayka wa ala jaddika wa abik wa ala ummika wa akhik wa ala abnaika wa ashabika al-mustashhadina bayna yadayk. Sallallahu alayka wa ala akhik أبي الفضل العباس ساقي عطاشا كربلاء وعلى أختك الحوراء زينب وعلى سائر المستشهدين ورحمة الله وبركاته. Of course, maybe some of our dear viewers might question why we, or I, decided to name these series of 5 nights under the name of the Universal Reformer. Universal meaning it will cover all of the universe, all of the inhabitants of this planet, of this world. And when we say universal, we don't mean in this specific period of time that we are living in. When I say universal, I mean from the beginning of time until the end of time. And when I say reformer, because the Imam of our time, salamullahi alayhi, he is the grandson of the reformer who left the city of Medina saying, إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he was to leave the city of Medina heading towards Karbala, he outlined the sole reason for him leaving. Why would someone leave the home city, his birthplace? Imam Hussein informed people that the sole reason I am leaving is to restore the traditions and the core and the original message of Islam, which is a message of peace and harmony and unity, and for people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best of ways for them to be able to reach the ultimate path of salvation. All we want is for you to be reaching salvation. And there are traditions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi that outlines the presence of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And Ahlul Bayt, they repeat that meaning, that in al-Hussein misbah al-huda wa safinatun najat. Gladly Imam Hussein alayhi salam is as if the ark of salvation and the lantern of guidance. So here Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, he will lead the reform, or he will continue in the path of the reformation that his grandfather Rasulullah, then Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam, and then continued by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. That's why when he will return, inshallah, he will raise the banner of Ya li Tharat al-Hussein. He will avenge the death of Imam al-Hussein, not because Imam al-Hussein is his grandfather, no, because he will avenge for the reasons that they stopped the path of reformation from being continued, and for people to be guided towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So in other words, that will be a fulfillment of the mission that was somehow initiated by Rasulullah and the Amir al-Mu'mineen.
And when we have narrations that declare that when the Imam of our time will return and arrive, for example, in Mecca and Medina, he will take out the bodies of those, the corpses of those who sabotaged the message of Rasulullah and stood and showed animosity against Amir al-Mu'mineen and Lady Fatima alayhim as-salam. Imam al-Mahdi, by doing that, he's not only going to seek revenge for the death of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ahlul Bayt, but he will also show and inform people that these two individuals, they were the start of the cause of deviation of the Ummah and eventually the whole humanity.
Exactly. As I believe there's a beautiful ziyarah in for Sardab al-Muqaddas, that chamber that belongs to Imam al-Mahdi, and there's a beautiful phrase which somehow captures what you said, and it's very important because the nature of these phrases are of those of testimony, as if we are expressing our beliefs, partly in one part we say وَأَنَّكَ لَمْ تَمُوتْ حَتَّى تُبْتَلَ الْجِبْتِ وَالطَّاغُوتِ. This is a very important statement. I think if we just ponder upon this statement, what are we testifying? We're bearing let's say witness, Allah, you bear witness that I believe the Imam of our time will not die until he has nullified what these two figures, vicious figures, initiated. So they stood in the path of, as you said, reformation, and they stood in the path of guidance for the whole humanity.
Of course. Now, it's good that you mentioned this, because what they started never ended there.
Exactly.
It still continues.
Yes.
That's why, Imam, we need, in some religions other than Islam, they call him a Messiah, someone who will come and people will seek refuge to him, not because of the lifestyle and financial means and because they can't eat, they don't have the food, or they don't have the sense of security and safety. It's because of the thing that naturally human beings need, the sense of safety and security and peace of mind.
Yes.
The faith. And why do we have faiths? Why do we have religion? Why do we practice religion? It's because it gives us a sense of calmness. To think and believe that there is someone overlooking us, that we can seek and return to him when we feel upset or depressed or in trouble, calms us. That's why we gave the example yesterday that what would you do? What would you do, or who would you return to if you are stuck in the middle of the darkness of the oceans? You would return to a power, a supreme power that can save you from that darkness. It was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, for us to be able to believe and again come to express our emotions towards the fact that we have a leader, an imam that will come back and he will resurrect these two individuals to show that, oh people, until the time that I have arrived, their route and their path is still ongoing. So I am bearing witness that, oh Allah, I believe in a figure that I await, and I believe in him, and I will support him in my faith and iman, even when it comes, when he shows the whole world that the path of these two individuals who sabotaged the path of reform is still ongoing, and I will end it here. From this day onwards, there will be no path.
Yes.
Or there will not be individuals who will continue the path of these wrongdoers and oppressors of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But it's easy for us to say that I am following the Imam of my time.
Yes. What are some qualities and virtues that will, let's say, label one as qualified,
exactly,
as a companion of the Imam of our time,
of course,
someone who is a true avator?
If we go back and study history, and we searched the books of history about the revolutions and about the reformists that came and wanted to change the political system of a specific part of the world. These individuals, these leaders, they set out a set of rules and criteria for those who wanted to join him, or join them, or join their path and movement. You have to first of all believe in what this leader wants to accomplish.
Yes.
Because if we go back to the wars or battles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ghazawat, and many of them were in defense, not in a start or an attack. There were many who claimed to be Muslims, who claimed to have the faith and to have believed in the prophethood of Rasulullah, but in the battlefield it showed, it highlighted whether their faith was sincere towards Allah and Rasulullah or no. Because some of them
were hypocrites.
As soon as the battle started, they noticed that these individuals, they were no longer amongst the soldiers behind the Holy Prophet of Islam. They used to run away and show up after 2 or 3 days.
Yes.
Or some of them, they used to wait for the chance to go to the battlefield and take the booties of the war. So they were there only for their interests. Here, Rasulullah set out a criteria after the first, second battle of Badr and Uhud. Rasulullah set out a criteria that if you want to be amongst the victorious followers of Islam, you need to have the belief and the faith within you, and not only have it inside your heart, you have to show it up. So here, what does it mean to be accompanying? The subtitle of tonight's show is how we can accompany the Imam of our time. What are the merits? What are the criteria? And we, at the end of the show last night, I did recite the narration as you mentioned the beginning of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. If I can repeat a small segment where I want to concentrate on tonight. And this is a lesson for us, brothers and sisters. These discussions are not merely discussions that we are drawing closer to the time of the 15th of Shabaan and we want to relive the remembrance of Imam al-Mahdi. No, these are merely set up for us to go away and think about our relationship with Imam al-Mahdi, the Imam of our time. We have to progress in our faith and belief towards the Imam of our time. It shouldn't be the case that year comes and year goes and the birthday, the 15th of Shabaan comes and we do some of the a'mal and some of the supplications is recited and some of the prayers. We fast the 15th of Shabaan, we recite the ziyarah of Imam Hussein. All of that is good. It's
illuminating
fine.
The cities.
Exactly.
Celebrations are fine, but
then what happens on the 16th of Shabaan? On the eve of the 15th of Shabaan, I am ready. I have spoken, inshallah, to my children about the arrival of the 15th of Shabaan. But what happens when the 15th of Shabaan finishes and the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th, the holy month of Ramadan comes? What happens to my relationship with the Imam of my time? So first of all, I need to know what I need, to what level I need to elevate my soul and my spirit and myself, so I can relate to the Imam of my time. It shouldn't be the case that the Imam of my time I only speak to once a year on the 15th of Shabaan.
So if I get it correctly, it's not just about some sort of bond or connection that we remember to resort to just on special occasions, but it's rather one that we need to sustain throughout the year and strengthen.
Exactly. And we
take
have
it
to
deeper
live
and
exactly. We have to have a relationship with the Imam in a way that we feel him amongst us. We should live with the Imam. The Imam should be living with us when we wake up in the morning. At the same way we expect people to say salam and greet us in the morning, we should wake up in the morning and say salam to our Imam. Some of the ulama, once they stand on their prayer mat and they want to pray, one of the things they do is they salute and they send their salams and greetings to the Imam of their time, and they raise their hands and say, "Oh my Imam, please, I beg you to mention me and remember me in your dua once you are standing and you will stand on your prayer mat and you want to do salah, when you want to pray."
And perhaps one of the best ways to do so is to read Ziyarat Ali Yasin, as had been recommended highly by the Imam himself.
Exactly.
That every time you want to receive our special attention, try to send salutations and salam to us.
Ahsantum. So the narration goes like this, where we mentioned Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is saying to us, those of you who want to be amongst the companions of the Imam of the time, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, the first statement that the Imam makes is, says, فَلْيَنْتَظِرْ. Let him be amongst those who are classified as those awaiting. Now let's concentrate on what lies under the name or the title of al-intidhar or فَلْيَنْتَظِرْ. And the Imam says, in order for you to be classified as someone as a muntadhir, you need to وَلْيَعْمَلْ بِالْوَرَعْ. Now let me clarify the difference between wara' and taqwa.
Yes.
Because generally speaking, a mu'min should always be someone seeking to reach taqwa or practicing taqwa. What is taqwa? Which we generally call piety. Taqwa is refraining from
committing sins
and wrongdoings, and practicing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed, the wajibat, doing the wajibat and staying out of the muharramat, the forbidden acts. This is what is generally practiced by the mu'mineen. Now for you or for me or for anyone else that wants to walk on the path of intidhar, to be classified as a muntadhir, we need to inshallah express the description of al-wara', which I think inshallah we will continue
after the break.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much. So this is very important to understand the distinction between these two terms and to be able to practice them actually in our everyday life. Dear viewers, thank you for staying with us until this moment. Break will be delivered to you, and you will be watching some glorious scenes of the vicinity of the shrine and the premises of the beautiful shrine of Imam Hussein and Abul Fazl Abbas alayhi salam. Stay with us, we'll be back. Salaam alaikum and welcome back to your program. Well, so you were saying the concept of taqwa is slightly different from what we know as vara. You were explaining it so that we understand, we have a better understanding and grasp of these two concepts, because in many narrations, as this one, also Amir al-Mu'min alayhi salam has emphasized the practice of vara.
Yes.
أعينوني بالورع واجتهاد والعفة والسداد. أحسنت.
So, as you mentioned clearly, there is a distinction. There should be a distinction between piety and the higher degree of piety, between taqwa and wara. Normal people, normal mu'mineen, normal Muslims, it is something normal that they should be practicing piety. This is the principles of Iman, that you should stay away from haram and not engage in wrongdoings. Because by doing that, you are nullifying your faith and your Iman. But for you to be classified as a muntadhir, or someone who likes and wishes to be amongst the companions of the Imam of the time, and this is what we all aspire to, we should be individuals who practice wara. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is saying, oh brother or sister, no matter where you live in the world today, don't say that I live in the West. Don't say that I am surrounded by deviation. I am surrounded by haram. I am continuously surrounded by individuals who pull me away with their desires and with their lust. No, you should practice wara, a higher degree of taqwa and piety, to an extent that you become the source of guidance for others. And that is, if you wish to be amongst the companions of Imam al-Mahdi. If you don't wish, then that's something that you need to worry about.
And perhaps the circumstances that you mentioned may be greater rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, if one is living in the West and surrounded by what you described, practicing vara will become even more precious in the sight of Allah.
Because unfortunately, as I am surrounded by the youth, our beloved brothers and sisters, who some were born in those kind of environments, some came to live in those kind of societies, they grew up in that environment, they take it for granted that they carry the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and they think that's it, that's enough. No, for we are encouraged continuously that we need to use the ladder of taqwa and iman to increase our spiritual status. And how can we do that? The Imam alayhi salam outlines that this belief of intidar, it shouldn't only be a desire in your heart. I like to be a muntadhir, I like to be someone waiting for the Imam of my time. It's not as simple as that.
Yes.
You can sit down for the next 100 years and say, I am a muntadhir, I like the possibility of becoming a muntadhir, but that will not draw you closer to the Imam of your time. Or for example, some believe that, okay, it's a belief, it's a iman, it's a i'tiqad that I should be a muntadhir. You can have that belief in your heart.
It's a matter of heart, not practice.
Exactly. You can have it in your heart, however long you wish, but that will not take you a step closer to the Imam of your time.
If I may, just technically speaking, because it's Arabic, but if you just say fal ya'mal, so it's very important. This
you need to take that
Arabic,
extra step.
Yes, I mean it's like a prerequisite. Without practicing vara, you will never be actually entering the realm of muntadhirin.
And unfortunately, our brothers and sisters, they attend majalis, they attend programs for the wiladat of Ahlul Bayt, specifically Imam al-Mahdi. But some speakers and lecturers, they lack to clarify this position. They only speak about the love that we should have about Imam al-Mahdi in our hearts, the love that we should have to celebrate his birthday. But they don't classify that there is a criteria for us in order for us to be those individuals who the Imam will have a special look upon. So it's not only a heartfelt desire, it's not only something that should be in our heart, and not only a spoken word. As I said, you can sit down and say, I am a muntadhir, I am a muntadhir, I am, for you can hold a sibha, a prayer bead, and repeat that statement. But would that draw you closer to the Imam? What will draw me closer? In what ways would I, when you might ask me, okay, say you talk about wara, but how can I practice wara? What of wara do I need to practice in my life? I will explain. A higher degree of piety. How can I give me examples of a higher degree of piety? I will give you. Imam alayhi salam says, وَلْيَعْمَلْ بِالْوَرَعْ وَمَحَاسِنَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The Imam takes you a step closer. Imam didn't say وَحُسْنُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The Imam says وَمَحَاسِنُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The higher degree of morals. This morals, this akhlaq, is linked to wara'. One is linked to another. Let me give you an example. Ayatollah Sadiq Shirazi, Hafidhahullah, narrates this story from his father, Rahmatullah alayhi, Mirza Mahdi Shirazi. Mirza Mahdi Shirazi was one of the great ulama, the great scholars of his time. He was the marja of his time. For a small period of time, he lived in the holy city of Samarra. In Samarra, as you mentioned earlier on, there is a sirdab, the specific special chamber where Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam went into occultation, and sometimes he meets the so-called close companions and ashab and ulama in that location. Mirza Mahdi Shirazi narrates that I had a friend, a alim, that frequently came and sat in the Sirdab al-Ghaibah every Friday and recited the dua and the ziyarah of Imam al-Mahdi. All the dua, all the narrations, all the supplications narrated for Imam al-Mahdi, he used to supplicate for a long period of time in the hope that he will be able to see the Imam. On one Friday, as usual, he went down to the Sirdab al-Ghaibah, he started reciting, but he started thinking with himself, I've been doing this for a long time, but why am I not being fortunate enough to see and meet the Imam of my time? So a sense of hopelessness,
despair probably, he fell upon him,
came into his heart. Whilst he was thinking about that, he says this alim started, something came into his mind that his Imam will soon come down the steps of Sirdab al-Ghaibah. He will have the chance and opportunity that he was waiting for to see the Imam. But then with that thought, a very specific feeling accompanied, which was started, you know, we call it in Arabic rahba, some sense of fear.
Fear, yes. He
started shivering. He wasn't comfortable. And unknowingly, he started making his way up the steps outside Sirdab al-Ghaibah. Something controlled him and made him to leave. When he left, he came back to his senses and he thought with himself that maybe there is something within me that is stopping me from meeting and seeing the Imam of my time. I'm not ready. Now, if a alim who's dedicated a long period of time, every Friday used to go in that very holy and pure location and recited the supplications and dua, and he sensed that he wasn't ready to meet the Imam of his time, then what about me, that I rarely think about the Imam of my time? I rarely speak to him. I rarely mention him in my life. What status would I have next to the Imam of my time?
That's very thought-provoking, in fact.
There is another story, and with these stories we draw closer to our relationship with our Imam. There was an individual, a alim, that speaks about a very, and again, this story is very amazing, brothers and sisters. There was in the city of Shiraz, a city in Iran, there was one individual who showed that he was insane. He practiced insanity. All the children, the kids of that part of Shiraz used to follow him, laugh at him, you know, make fun of him. This alim says, one afternoon, I felt like going into the grand masjid of Shiraz to worship, to pray. He says, whilst I was doing that, in the corner of my eyes, I saw that same individual that used to practice insanity, show insanity. He came very discreetly. He went behind one of the pillars and started praying. What a prayer! A prayer that I thought only pious individuals will pray. He was pronouncing the surah, the verses of the Holy Quran.
With
he
deliberation,
was,
perhaps.
with calmness, with total satisfaction and control. His supplication, his qunut, his sujood was perfect. He said, when I saw this, I was amazed. He talked to himself, said, moments ago in the streets of Shiraz, he was showing insanity, he was crazy, this is what he was showing to people, but now he's praying a perfect salah. Let me go to him. He said, I went to him. As soon as he saw me, he said he came back to the original way he used to act in the streets and marketplaces. He said, I spoke to him, I begged him, tell me, what is the reason that you act like this outside the masjid, the mosque, and now inside the masjid you are acting in such a manner? He said he continued speaking to me in a crazy manner. He said I continued forcing him to tell me. He said with tearful eyes, he started crying. He said, I will tell you this, but I ask you by Allah, don't mention this to anyone else. He said, what is it? Tell me. He said, what would you say to someone who frequently was able to meet his Imam and set his eyes on the luminous face of his Imam, but suddenly that tawfiq, that blessing was taken away? He said, tell me what happened. He said, I was an individual that on a continuous basis I was able to speak to my Imam and set my eyes on the face of my Imam. I used to meet the Imam on a frequent basis, but there was one time that one eyesight, one look at a mahram, an individual who was walking in the markets of Shiraz, a young lady, I looked at her, and that glance, which was a sin for me, that prevented me from seeing my Imam again. And he said, this is the situation that I have to show, that I lost that precious gem that I had in my hand. Now what do I have? I have nothing to lose. So I am showing that I am someone who is showing insanity. So I should react in an insane way. Why? Because I've lost something so precious. Now he is someone who used to be able to see the Imam, but for one wrong glance, if we take that lesson and think with ourselves, so what level of wara do we need to practice?
Perhaps highlights the importance and clarifies what wara is actually means in practice.
Now we go and take the next step of mahasin al-akhlaq. Islam, Ahlul Bayt, always push us towards the higher grades of morals, practicing akhlaq. And here, let me open a bracket. What do I mean by the mahasin al-akhlaq? What does the Imam want us to do? What does mahasin al-akhlaq mean? Now, my dear brothers and sisters might always ask, this topic of akhlaq always comes up in every discussion.
Yes.
Because it's the only way that you can arrive in the atmosphere of the Imam of your time. Why? Because Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they used to practice mahasinul akhlaq. Okay, Sayyid, what is mahasinul akhlaq? I will give you an example. Someone who has akhlaq, husnul khulq, he's practicing morals. He has three options. When someone comes to you and starts abusing you, starts using verbal abuse against you, you have three options. You choose one of these three. You either repeat and use the same way he was verbally abusing you, you will defend yourself and be verbally abusive towards him. And this is what we usually see around us. This is one option. The second option is that you don't reply back. You continue walking, or you go and do something else. You don't show any regard to what this person is saying. This is the second option. But the third option is what draws you closer to practicing mahasinul akhlaq, the higher grades of akhlaq. What is it? That is what Malik al-Ashtar practiced when someone became abusive. And Malik al-Ashtar, who is Malik al-Ashtar? He is one of the students of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now imagine if a student of Amir al-Mu'mineen practiced in such a manner, how would Amir al-Mu'mineen practice, or what would he show against not only his beloveds and lovers and followers, against his enemies on the battlefield? Malik al-Ashtar, as he was walking in one of the streets and markets of Kufa, someone who didn't really understand the position of Malik started becoming abusive. Maybe. Exactly. He became verbally abusive towards Malik. Now what did Malik al-Ashtar do? Being a student, honorable student of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he continued his way. He said, I will not reply back to you in the same manner that you started speaking to me. He stayed calm and quiet, and he continued making his way towards the mosque, the masjid of Kufa. The companions realized that Malik entered the mosque and started praying. When they came to him, to this man who was being abusive towards Malik, they said to him, do you know who you were abusive against? This is Malik al-Ashtar, the commander of the army of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Once realizing that, he followed Malik inside the masjid. He heard Malik in the sujood praying for that man. Mahasinul akhlaq means when someone is abusive towards you and someone who is talking against you in a negative manner, not only that you don't repeat or you treat them the same way you was treated, not only that you stay quiet and you make your way and go and do something else, but you don't carry any grudge against them in your heart.
And you take it further and pray for their guidance. And
you go and you pray for them, and that relationship might increase the love you have for that person in your heart. Someone who wants to be classified as a muntadhir has to be of such a high caliber of morals and akhlaq. The Imam of our time, he doesn't want people who go out in the marketplace and start lying and being abusive towards people. The Imam of our time, he wants a young man or a young lady who protects their modesty in terms of their appearance. Now let's go out in the streets and the roads of our city, and let's look at the lovers of Ahlul Bayt. I'm not going to say let's look at those who are the farthest away from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and let's ponder up on their dresses. Okay, don't look at other people, look at yourself. Would my clothing bring a smile to the face of the Imam of my time, or will it may upset the Imam of my time? The t-shirt that I am wearing, or the jeans that I am wearing, or the clothing that I am wearing,
is it really befitting?
Is it really befitting someone who wants to be amongst the companions, or loves to be amongst the companions of the Imam of the time, or not? A father of a family, the head of a family at home, is he an individual that fulfills his responsibility towards his children? Because that also falls under the banner of Mahasinul Akhlaq. The Imam of our time wants a father figure who respects and honors the rights of his children. What do I mean by the rights of his children? I mean he doesn't neglect supporting his children. He doesn't neglect the upbringing and the nurturing of his children. He doesn't leave them and goes out in the morning, goes to his work and to his business and to his daily routine and chores, and he doesn't know anything about where his children are spending their time. Who is upbringing our children? Is it the social media? Is it these smartphones? Or am I the father, or am I the mother practicing,
take responsibility for the teaching,
showing my responsibility of nurturing my children? Because this is an individual that the Imam of my time wants. He wants someone who is practicing their responsibilities towards their children. Am I an individual who is a merchant, who is a tajir? I have a business. I am successful in my business and I am making lots of money, but how, in which way am I making this wealth? This accumulating wealth that I am proud of in my bank account, where did I derive it from?
Did I really care about how I earned this money? Did I break any rules of God or not? Or did I turn a blind eye on, you know, just...
I have financial responsibilities. The Imam of the time, he does not want a companion that his money, his wealth is mixed with haram money. Okay, Sayyid, what do you mean by haram money? I am working from the morning until the night. I am trying my best to bring a halal piece of bread to my family. How could my money be mixed with haram money? I would give you an example of a lady. And you're gesturing that I think our time is close.
We're just coming to the end.
I will give you the story, and as I said, inshallah, we'll continue. Lady Shutaita, As-Sayyida Shutaita. This lady, this great honorable lady, gives us a very clear distinction between an individual who was accepted by the Imam of her time. She took out one, if I'm not mistaken, 1 dirham or 1 dinar. She took out and said, gave it to that person who was heading towards
Musa ibn Ja'far,
salamullahi alayhi, to give her financial responsibility, her khums towards the Imam. And amongst that money that was collected was money pouches full of golden dinars and dirhams that were collected from the merchants and the business owners of that city. Once that representative arrived to Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, the Imam took the pouch of the money and took out 1 dinar or 1 dirham out, and he returned the rest, saying to that representative, go back and tell those individuals that their money,
we don't need their money.
It's not accepted by the Imam, but send my salam to Sayyida Shutaita and tell her that her 1 dinar was accepted by the Imam.
Thank you for that very beautiful story. And he was also, I think, granted a special gift by the Imam. A
special gift and a special visit when she passed away.
When she passed away. So it's perhaps about the doctrine of Mahdawiya that we need to practice in our everyday life. It should somehow encapsulate every aspect of our life, and we should nurture ourselves in the service of our Imam, in our relations with others, especially the closest ones to us. And perhaps one key that comes to mind is feeling the presence of the Imam, and that he's constantly watching us, hearing us, and this may somehow make us chase away from some of the, let's say, indecencies that we may engage in. So I would like to express my gratitude for your very thought-provoking and insightful lecture, and it is my hope that our dear viewers have benefited from this program and will continue to stay with us throughout these series of talks. May Allah grant us His blessings and tawfiq to stay with you to the end of these series of talks. I wish you a most beautiful night. Stay tuned with Imam Hussein TV, as the next program lined up for you is Welcome to Karbala. Thank you again. Good night.